Good afternoon, everyone. This is Drew Camp, the Director of Government Relations and Business Retention and Expansion here at the Ames Chamber of Commerce. I'll get right into it as we had a very eventful week in the state legislature this week with a massive, comprehensive income tax bill coming out of the Senate Ways and Means Committee. It had a subcommittee at 8 a.m. on Thursday and then passed out of the Senate Ways and Means Committees on Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. Some of the key components that I want to talk through on the bill. It's about 130 pages, so bear with me as there are a lot of details and it's very dense tax policy. So the top individual income tax rate would drop from 8.98% to 6.3%. It would decrease the top corporate rate from 12%, which is the highest in the country, to 7%. It would eliminate federal deductibility for both individual and corporate income tax. It would eliminate the alternative minimum tax for both individual and corporate income taxes. It would permanently couple with the Internal Revenue Code, which is especially important for groups such as REG when they're looking at their biodiesel production tax credits. Having that continuity there between the two is really important for companies like them or anyone using renewable fuels or renewable energy or solar tax credits. Those are kind of the things that can really get paired together and are really beneficial to have a permanent coupling because it provides more certainty, which is really what they need. It also creates a tax credit review committee to analyze tax credits between the 2018 and 2019 legislative session. They would come back in the 2019 legislative session with proposals. There are, however, some proposed changes and eliminations actually of some of our tax credit programs. The first one is the angel investor tax credit. Currently, there's an appropriation of $2 million per year that goes to that. It would have the flexibility to expand to $4 million, but the catch would be any increase over $2 million would be taken from the $8 million allotment of the Innovation Fund, things such as the Propel Fund and the Demonstration Fund for startup companies to really give them some working capital in their early stages. It would also decrease the cap on high-quality jobs starting in fiscal year 2019 this July. It would eliminate the Supplemental Research Activities Tax Credit within the High Quality Jobs Program in January of 2019. It would allow you to only use the Research Activities Tax Credit on manufacturing, life science, software engineering, and aviation and aerospace, and that would be retroactive until January 1st of 2018. It is important to note, however, besides some of those minor changes it makes to the Research Activities Program as a whole, it doesn't manipulate the program very much beyond that, which is something we were very pleased to see. The Historic Tax Credit Program, which is also run by the Iowa Economic Development Authority, that would also be impacted. It would be capped at $35 million starting in FY 2019, which is this July. And an important critical piece really for us is that in FY 2026, which would be July of 2025, it would repeal the High Quality Jobs Program and the Historic Tax Credit Program. That's obviously concerning to us because we utilize the High Quality Jobs Program as our premier suite of economic development assistance for any projects that we work with. So that's obviously concerning, but there is a little bit of leeway there provided that it's not an instantaneous elimination or repeal. It would be in FY 2026. But that is very much concerning because that is something we very much will defend because we use it so frequently here in town. It does include corporate, however, which is a major improvement from any other proposal that we have seen, and that is something we very much thank the Senate for. It does, once again, like I said, give us time before the phase out of the high quality jobs and the historic tax credits, which is concerning, but that also gives us time to prove their worth and the reason that they should stay, even with the changes in the corporate tax climate and the corporate tax code here in the state. As I mentioned, it also leaves the research activities tax credit largely in place, which is something we very much are supportive of. And while we do have concerns, we have been advocating for corporate tax reform for about a decade. I believe ever since Dan was up in Mason City, we've been advocating for this. So when we see a proposal come out including corporate tax reform, that is something that we definitely are happy to see and are in favor of as far as including corporate. While we obviously do have some concerns, those that I voiced before, We will be voicing those concerns and helping the Senate and the House, once it tentatively potentially gets over there, to make sure that the bill is improved and that the best piece of legislation is ultimately passed. But we are very much initially supportive of the bill and the proposal of including corporate, but we are cautiously optimistic because there are some concerns, as I mentioned, that we have, that we will be voicing and working through them on, as we do with any piece of legislation. But we are thankful for the Senate and putting out a bill that does include corporate, as that is a very bold step, especially in the current political climate. Another important bill that was released this week, that a subcommittee was assigned to this week, was the property tax backfill. This is the top priority of the city and the county, as it's hundreds of thousands, or if not millions, to the communities. It's about $400,000 to $500,000 in tax revenue to the county, and it's about over $1 million in tax revenue, property tax revenue, to the city of Ames. So when they hear that a bill has been put forward to repeal and eliminate the property tax backfill, as you can imagine, they are very, very concerned. We too are concerned. It was listed in our priorities as something that we would advocate against, and that will be what we do. I'll be meeting with the city here early next week to discuss our approach to make sure that we are unified in that messaging and make sure that we are bringing the message to Des Moines as to the impact that would have, because it would bring about property tax increases for residents of Ames and Story County. So that is something we want to make sure we are strongly advocating against, the elimination of the property tax backfill, in unison with our partners at the city and the county. So that's something we'll be working on going forward, and something we really expect to talk a lot about when we're at the Capitol next Wednesday meeting with legislative leadership. There's not much new to report on the Deappropriations Bill. They're still working through it, but we haven't seen any activity on it. It is once again important to note that the biggest chunk of about the $34 million that are being proposed for cuts, about 26 of that comes from economic development and higher education. So the vast majority of those cuts come from economic development programs and higher education, something that's hugely impactful to Ames and Story County. There haven't really been any developments on the TIF front, which is something we're happy to see. The tax increment financing bills in the House and the Senate have both kind of been stagnant as of late, and we'll continue to monitor those and make sure we're advocating against any movement forward with those if we do see that. Future Ready Iowa remains alive and moving forward in the session, and we'll continue to advocate for that. Supplemental state aid for our school districts continues to move forward. There was action on that on Monday for about a 1% or a $32 million increase for school districts, and we hope that they'll get that done here swiftly so they can get the numbers to the schools and they can set their budgets with that information. Another piece that continues to move forward as well, which is important for both Ames Community School District and Gilbert Community School District, as they have a bond referendum coming up on April 3rd, is the extension of the Save Sales Tax penny and the extension also of some equity funding for transportation and property tax relief that are tied to that bill. We are registered in support of that bill and will continue to push for the extension of the Save Sales Tax penny. The school equity bill that also addresses the transportation costs for some more rural districts also continues to move forward, and we're in favor of that bill because it will also obviously impact community and economic development because of the strength and health and viability of our school systems. So those are some of the bills that we are currently monitoring and the statuses of each. Next week, we expect to see a lot of action on bills like the Senate tax proposal, as I covered a lot of today in the report, also property tax backfill, and the Deappropriations Bill are both bills that we plan to see some action on next week. So please make sure that you stay tuned for our update coming up next Friday, as there is bound to be additional information on some of these critical topics for the city of Ames and Story County, and also for the Ames Chamber of Commerce and our members and affiliates. Thank you for watching.